all men. So you ordinarily do not see Christians rising up to, go into violent protests. And of course, at a point, it was disclosed by an agency of the United Nations that the federal government paid a lot of ransom to these kidnappers, and some even alleged that these payments are made probably to further strengthen
on Leah Sharibu. On Leah Sharibu. Today she marks 16, and if I'm very correct, today is going on Leah Sharibu. Today she marks 16, and if I'm very correct, today is going to be our 449th day in Boko Haram captivity. So why has there been some sort of reluctance in our release? What?
The federal government has promised to ensure her release, and Nigerians are still waiting on fulfilling that promise. But let's go to the background.
Yeah.
You recall that she became a victim of the second kidnapping of schoolgirls, the first one that took place under the Jonathan regime. And not even all the girls who were kidnapped then have been released till now. And the Dapchi kidnapping came in a very dramatic manner that threw up a lot of questions. And one of the questions was the fact that the federal government went in to negotiate the release of quite a number of those girls, but she was held back on the reason that she refused to renounce her Christian faith. And many interpreted that as probably an attempt to provoke the Christian community. But I know very well, as a Christian myself, that if you read Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14, the Bible says we should follow peace with all men. So you ordinarily do not see Christians rising up to, go into violent protests. And of course, at a point, it was disclosed by an agency of the United Nations that the federal government paid a lot of ransom to these kidnappers, and some even alleged that these payments are made probably to further strengthen the criminal activities of these terrorists. But by and large, it has portrayed our nation as a nation that is probably overwhelmed by terrorism. And the president of Nigeria, who I have confidence in given his antecedent as a retired general in the army, a former military head of state, I believe he knows that he has to do something before he leaves office, so that history, we have something remarkable to record. The parents have been going through a lot of agony, and a question I particularly asked at the time is that you can imagine that Leah Sharibu, amongst others, is the daughter of, maybe a senator or a minister in the federal cabinet, or one of the elites. But that's one of the challenges we have. But you link that up with the symptoms we have in our society. For example, recently we were rated as the capital of poverty. And I know that with the different kinds of negative elements we have, the rate of crime, kidnapping, raping, banditry, herdsmen killing, you cannot run away from poverty despite our enormous resources. And I'm talking about natural resources, human resources, and different kinds of opportunities we have. But some of us are hopeful that the glory and the prosperity of the country will be restored. I mean, whether you like it or not, whether in the private sector or the public sector, leadership has a critical role to play.
All right, sir. Still speaking about the president, even though he doesn't figure out Leah Sharibu's case before he leaves office, he's actually going to resume back to it on the 29th of May. So what are your expectations for this new administration of his?
We have said it, when we talk about expectations, we must first look at what we call objective. You see, in the business community, you have a strategic plan to achieve an objective. And if you go back to 1945, postulation of Peter Drucker management by objective, which calls on you to set smart objectives. And smart objectives are objectives that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So there are so many things we expect. For example, we have a terrible image, even though we have been reluctant in classifying these hoodlums as terrorists for whatever reason. They are. If you look at all elements of terrorism, they are present in their activities. So, and the constitution of the country, Nigeria, put a mandate on the government to protect lives and properties, to provide for the people, and create an enabling environment. If, for instance, you look at Section 16 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it says that the economy of the country, and that is the economic objective, should be managed in a way that we have a consistent, prosperity. And it may shock you to know that the same constitution requires the government to provide for you as a citizen and I adequate and affordable food, adequate and affordable housing, minimum living wage, care for the old, provision for all citizens. And the same constitution says that the welfare and the security of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. And that is summarizing everything. So we expect a situation where, for example, our refineries at least start functioning maximally. I am personally traumatized by the undenied fact that my country spends about 1.4 trillion naira annually on under recovery, and that is the other terminology for subsidy. All right, and it's crazy. I think there are about 700 refineries in the world, and we are fortunate to have 4 out of these refineries. So, and since the beginning of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, some of us have been driving the advocacy that we can have modular refineries. So let's assume that we started building modular refineries since 2015. By now, we should not be where we are. Because with modular refineries, do you know it's possible to have a refinery in your local government, even though the crude oil is somewhere else? So the world has gone ahead. And we're talking about refineries, not rocket science. America has about 135 refineries, and they are functioning. You want to talk about Saudi Arabia and some serious countries of the world. And of course, in the area of security, we have no excuse, except this government is comfortable with the level of insecurity. President Muhammadu Buhari government has admitted that our borders are porous. And the next question a reasonable human being should ask is that, do we have the immigration service? I mean, some of us have traveled across the globe. I know that even when you are checking into the USA from Abu Dhabi, you go through a thorough check. You can see what Donald Trump is doing in the US, planning to build a wall to prevent Mexicans from coming into America. Not because he does not want them to come and do business, because probably some of them are of criminal minds. Right now in Nigeria, there are many foreigners that are here. They are jobless. So how do you expect them to occupy themselves? Recently, my amiable president admitted that we have about 1 million displaced children who don't even know their parents. You see, so these things are disturbing. In this same great country, we have read reports of those who are importing ammunition, and we have asked the question, for who? Where are this ammunition? People importing military camouflage. And that is why we should not be surprised that crime is growing. But like I said, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure the environment is sane. And talking about our economy, when you begin to classify countries in the compartment of being developed, developing, and underdeveloped or undeveloped, you look at the per capita income. Then when you begin to talk about undeveloped underdeveloped countries. You talk about poverty, and like I said, recently we were rated the headquarters of poverty. You talk about weak human capital. So what premium have we given to education, empowering the human capital in Nigeria? Recently, a state of emergency was declared in education in almost all the states in the country. All right. Then you talk about a vulnerable economy. As we speak, in the course of this week, the national grid collapsed again. You see, so, and you talk about the health facilities available to the people. So there are a lot of issues that can be attended to, but it appears that basically we are channeling our expenditure towards the weakness of the country, because in business you talk about SWOT analysis, SWOT. The S stands for strength, which is internal. What are your talents? What are the things that make you great? And you invest more on that. Your weakness are those things that can work against you. The opportunities are the externalities. And right now, if you look at the United Nations Sustainable Goals, which will be evaluated in year 2030, there is room for partnership amongst countries. Many countries are interested in investing in Nigeria. One of our strengths is the market size that we have. But who wants to invest in an unsecured and insecure environment? So these are things that are troubling us. And if the government can just focus on it, and it's not an impossible thing. As the executive president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, we have the MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies that work in collaboration. I mean, we have 109 senators, 360 members of the House of Reps at the national level. All right. So we have all these, but then it depends on the direction the leadership is following. Because whether we like it or not, when we begin to classify leadership, we talk about transactional leadership, transformational leadership. So it depends on the vision of the leader. We influence the result that we get. So we hope, some of us hope, that there will be a different narrative from what we have had in recent times in this
Hopefully,
country.
I hope we have a different narrative, because I can see we have a lot of expectations. You said something on security, which I believe is one of the major problems plaguing us as a country. So how will you rate the success of the Nigerian military in combating the space of insecurity in the country?
I'll pick it from the global reckoning. The Nigerian security force is marvelous. You want to talk about how we have successfully handled cases in the days of ECOMOG and things like that. How we are award winners, even when we go on foreign missions. But locally, I must say, despite the fact that we are compelled to appreciate their efforts, the results we have do not justify a commendable returns on investment. And of course, even quite a number of times, the force has come out to acknowledge some of the elements within the system, compromising the system. At a time, General Theophilus Danjuma, who himself was a defense minister also in the country, an authority in security matters, came out to challenge the government that there may be a collusion between the military and the criminals, and that there may be an attempt to embark on ethnic cleansing. A panel was set up to probe, but nothing came out of that probe. And that was when this elder statesman cautioned the communities to find ways of protecting themselves. And when you look at the fact that Nigerians have complained about the rampaging herdsmen, and I am particularly disturbed why cattle rearing should lead to destruction of lives and properties. I know that India has the highest flock in the world, about 300 million, more than the population of Nigeria. I think followed by Brazil. I know some countries of the world, even my president, whom I respect so much, has a ranch. So in driving your business process, why must people be killed? Why must people be raping and all the evil we have in the land. And what have we achieved? Even with this carnage, how much have they added to the revenue of the country? How much do they pay in tax? What can compare to a human life? And now, let's look at it. This government came up with beautiful plans, for example, to diversify the economy. But some of us are asking the question, if you are diversifying, for instance, and farmers who are expected to help in the area of maximizing our agroeconomy potentials are being killed and chased away from their farmlands, where are we going? Where are we going? So it just brought me to a point that I started questioning our unity. If you look at our motto as a country, it is unity and faith. That means without unity, we cannot have faith in Project Nigeria. Then peace and progress. Without peace, how can we progress? And I keep wondering, what exactly is going on? A country so overwhelmingly blessed. Do you know that Nigeria has the largest deposit of proven gas reserve in Africa? And I think the 6th largest in the world. And yet, we flare gas, we cannot even harness this gas to provide electricity. So I suspect that we don't trust one another. So we still have this regional intimidation going on. Okay, if this region is managing the government within this space of years, you suppress this region. When this region comes, you retaliate. No nation moves forward that way. And that's why some of us are so passionate, resolute, and confident that Nigeria will shine. You know, we are just waiting for that era where we have a group of leaders that are visionary, because I doubt if leadership can accomplish anything beyond the vision available onto that leadership.
Okay, so for clarity purpose, on a scale of 1 to 10, how will you rate their success?
Their success. They also know they have failed. And I mean, let me bring in law. We use evidence. Recently, the acting Inspector General of Police was before the National Assembly. And he said that we are helpless. So if the police is helpless, let's bring it to examination hall. You set questions for your students, the candidates, and somebody replies you on the answer script that, sir, I'm helpless, and submit. What will be your rating? I mean, don't let us pretend as a nation. I don't know what exactly is influencing the level of governance failure we are beginning to experience in this country. This is not characteristic of my country. So, and that's why I pray that we'll move beyond this era as quickly as possible. I mean, it's on record that military formations were invaded by terrorists who come with missile launchers. Whether we deny these things or not, they are there. We have read about ill equipment and things like that. At the time, mobile policemen protested that they were not getting their allowances. So what are we talking about? You know, and I think my shock is that this is an unconventional war. If another country is invading us, we face them headlong. But this is a soulful war. And I pray that those who are behind this, for whatever reason, will repent early enough. Because I know that God never ends in negative. And I have said it, when the people feel unprotected, unprovided for, then they also have some alternatives. You can see what is happening in Sudan now. After about 30 years of oppression, the people rose up en masse to say, no. There has to be an end to this. And someone said, when the government fears the people, there is good governance. When the people fear the government, there is bad governance. But there is also a limit to people fearing the government, because poverty is a strange teacher. Poverty is a strange hardener. Poverty will harden the minds of people. But I pray that the era of prosperity will soon return to this country, and what gives me joy is the fact that our resources have not been exhausted. In fact, we have more we have not discovered. So it's a matter of having a paradigm shift and choosing to do the right thing. I mean, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, a former Nigerian head of state and president, consulted Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore and asked him, how did you achieve this miracle? And the man told him that Singapore decided to do the right thing and to continue to do the right thing.
All right, so thank you very much. Moving on to my next question. Sorry, Sam. So recently, the governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, he implored Lagosians to unite and end godfatherism. Now, do you, and these statements have actually created tension in the party. Do you agree with him, or do you feel like Lagos is doing well with Tinubu seemingly controlling the state? Because some people felt like it was actually directing the message to Tinubu. So what was your take on this?
For me, he also is a godfather. El-Rufai himself.
Okay.
Yes. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Godfatherism is a global concept. It's all about influence. Tafawa Balewa, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Adobayeros of this world, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. We've had godfathers, those who influence people. Nelson Mandela is a godfather. He's a godfather to me. Abraham Lincoln. But perhaps he needs to fully express his concern. For me, when we begin to use godfatherism for personal benefits and not for societal benefits, we should be worried. But I also, with all due respect, challenge the governor of Kaduna State. Kaduna State is a state that is troubled by violence. And recently, despite the fact that he occupies a fatherly position in that state, he threatened foreign observers coming to observe our elections, that if they interfere unnecessarily, they will return in body bags. So when you see some criminals killing tourists in Kajuru Resort, a resort that should be fetching revenue, then you have to point to a godfather who is a strong influence to some element, because we are all influencers and we are all being influenced. So my advice to Nigerian politicians is that use your influence to benefit the people. It's as simple as that. I mean, the simple solution is to create prosperity for the people. I want to be in a country where the opportunity I have enjoyed, the younger ones enjoyed, sound education, coming out of school and you can find jobs to do and you choose not to work, you can set up your own business, you can plan your life. You see, so I think when they come out to make these statements, I think they're all guilty of the allegations they are making. Okay. But for Lagos State people, there are a lot that can be done. And my advice is that anybody that has the privilege of managing Lagos should think first of linking up with the primary needs of the people before attending to the secondary needs. Because sometimes what a man needs more is a good road to come out of his locality and to connect the city than a huge project in the city that may take him eternity to even see. And so people are emotional, they are psychological beings. And so let's come to the level of the people, make basic amenities available, and they are there. And I also want to advise those who are in this part of the country not to be carried away by the statement of Governor El-Rufai. Right now, I can see many human beings in Lagos that probably don't have any business being in Lagos. Quite a number of them foreigners who are jobless, who live on the street. So we have a very volatile security situation in Lagos that may explode. So I think I will be suggesting to the Lagos State government, for instance, that we negotiate, we relate with the local government, LCDAs, the CDAs, to begin to document people. You must be able to know, okay, fine. If because of your fundamental human rights and the fact that you can be in any part of the country, you can move freely. If you are on my street and you sleep on the street, I think the government should be able to come
capture your biodata, be able to identify you. I do not classify you as my neighbor if you are sleeping on the street. What about the sanitation and other security concerns? So I think we should be thinking more about that. Now, if you look at how armed robbers are operating now, people are being kidnapped and different kinds of crime. And when the time of dealing with godfatherism comes, it will come so naturally. And again, I want to advise, particularly for the southern politicians, they need to be careful. I've seen the northern politicians being closely knit together. And I've seen that division in the south. And that's why I was particularly worried before the last 2019 election, when I understand that the presidency of 2023 was offered to the southeast and southwest at the same time. So you can imagine throwing a bone to two energetic dogs. What may come out of it? And there may be a surprise. The northern part of this country may suddenly spring up to begin to confront you with the fact that there is northeast, northwest, north central, and north. And the rotation, we think, may work things out, may not work. So I foresee a Nigerian where it does not really matter where the leader is from. What matters is developing this country for the benefit of all.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Moving on to my last question. I'm not sure if you've listened to the audio recording circulating about 150 billion missing from CBN, indicting CBN governor and some of the top officials. Have you listened to it, sir? The audio recording?
I have not, but I've read about it.
Okay, but you've not listened to it?
Yeah, but I've read about it.
Okay, because I was about to ask, to what extent do you agree with the content of the audio?
The content has not been denied.
It has, actually.
No. What the CBN spokesperson said is that those items were picked from conversation,
and they are
exactly just
claim.
Secluded from the general conversation. But if those were elements of the conversation, you can also draw deductions from them. But I'm not surprised. I've said it. The response depends on what side of the pendulum it lands. And we have instances that we can make reference to. Recently, a video showed up, I think about 2 videos, of the governor of Kano State collecting bribe and putting them in his garment. And our president went abroad, and he didn't feel ruffled. The EFCC is empowered to investigate.
And they've not done that,
despite your immunity, and warehouse the evidence. And I have the case of he was able to survive it. So whether we deny these things or not, for me, whether money is missing from central bank or not, I'm not the one to determine that. We have the law enforcement agents. But then, whether we deny it or not, there is poverty in this country. Obviously, the economy of this country has not been managed in a way that will deliver prosperity. And again, I don't lose my sleep over these things. What is not known now, what may be covered now, will be uncovered. When the election of MKO Abiola was annulled, the June Hope 93 was annulled, it was for a good reason. But recently, some people, because their conscience is rolling them off the cliff, started confessing about it. And so I don't want to be in a hurry. And I said it on one occasion, that who was bold enough to confront late General Sani Abacha that he was looting the resources of Nigeria when he was military head of state. But when the man passed on, the alarm blew. Even what he looted, we are still trying to recoup all now. Even the looted funds that we recovered, Nigerians are still asking questions. Where is this money? How are we deploying the money? And it was in the news today that some members of the House of Representatives are saying that corruption is still continuing under this government. So when some of us will be persuaded that we have deliberately dealt with corruption, is when prosperity begins to manifest in our societies, and not just that a class of elite are the ones enjoying the goodies. And that one also is dangerous, because if you have a microsphere of prosperity within a macrosphere of poverty, that micro prosperity is threatened. And that's why I say the security of one is the security of all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on this matter.